a major showdown between LeBron James and Isaiah Stewart to a fight between Miami Heat and Toronto Raptors players spilling into the stands. Here are the craziest NBA fights of all time. Starting with one of the most explosive brawls in recent NBA history, the showdown between LeBron James and Isaiah Stewart. It all went down during a Lakers versus Pistons game in November 2021. In the third quarter, LeBron drove to the basket, but things took a wild turn when he accidentally elbowed Stewart right in the face. Ouch! The impact left Stewart with a nasty laceration above his eye, which required a whopping 8 stitches to close. Talk about intense. Stewart was understandably furious and wasted no time charging at LeBron, giving him a forceful shove in the back. It took a group effort from his teammates and the referees to restrain Stewart, but his determination to confront LeBron was unstoppable. He broke free multiple times, relentlessly trying to reach the Lakers superstar. The situation escalated quickly, with players from both teams jumping into the mix and attempting to separate Stewart from LeBron. Even the Lakers coaching staff and security personnel had to step in to keep the situation from spiraling further. The game came to a halt as the chaos unfolded. Both LeBron and Stewart were ejected from the game, causing a major disruption and extending the delay. But Stewart's rage couldn't be contained. He had to be physically held back by his teammates and escorted off the court, still fiercely attempting to break free and get at LeBron. Yikes! But wait, NBA fights aren't limited to opponents. Sometimes they even happen between teammates. Take the case of Jordan Poole and Draymond Green during a game between the Warriors and Thunder in 2022. In the heat of the fourth quarter, Green let his emotions fly and began yelling at Poole following a play. The exact reason behind Green's outburst remains a mystery, but some reports suggest it had to do with Poole's decision-making on the court. The tension escalated when Green gave Poole a shove, and in a surprising turn of events, Poole shoved him right back. Teammates rushed in to separate the two fiery players, and officials intervened to prevent things from getting uglier. After the game, Green downplayed the incident, labeling it as a misunderstanding between him and Poole. He even commended Poole's growth as a player, recognizing his potential and expressing excitement for his future. Despite Green's attempt to brush it off, there's no denying that emotions were running high on the court that day. Speaking of emotions running high, here's another absolute chaotic, mind-blowing brawl that went down between the Timberwolves and the Orlando Magic. So here's what happened. Two players from Minnesota's team and the Orlando Magic got into a fight. It started off being all verbal, but it ended with everyone throwing punches. At the end of the third quarter, an honest-to-goodness brawl broke out near the Orlando bench. 5 players were then sent off the court. Austin Rivers, a guard for Minnesota, and Mo Bamba, a center for Orlando, were the first 2 players involved in the fight. But soon after, several other players joined in. Who can resist a fight? As a result of the courtside brawl, the Timberwolves had to remove Taurean Prince and Jaden McDaniels and Rivers, while the other team threw Bamba and Jalen Suggs out. When the video made its way to the internet, it showed Rivers standing right in front of the Magic bench while the game was going on at the other end of the court. And it was Rivers who threw the first punch at Bamba when he came into the game from the bench. Then Suggs pulled Rivers away and swung him onto the court. McDaniels and Prince both joined the chaos soon after. You're probably wondering what made Rivers Hulk out though, right? Well, a few minutes earlier, he missed a 3-point shot in front of the Orlando bench. Bamba and Markelle Fultz mocked him pretty openly in front of the bench. Crazy, right? Well, it gets crazier. The Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors took their fight to the stands. Yes, you heard me right. Caleb Martin and Christian Koloko literally went at it in the crowd during their game. It happened when there were about 7 minutes left in the third quarter, with the Heat in the lead. Talk about intense. The whole thing started over a spot under the basket. Martin got frustrated and flailed his leg, accidentally catching Koloko's leg. That sent him tumbling to the ground. But here's where it gets really wild. Martin ran up to Koloko and stood on top of him. The fans went crazy too. They were pushing each other, rushing to their favorite players, and the fight spread like wildfire. As other players moved to separate them, security got the people in the front row to go back to their places. Martin and Koloko both got technical fouls and were kicked out of the game. Koloko was outraged by that since he just stood up for himself and ended up getting ejected. The man's got a point. Martin did him dirty. But I can't talk about dirty plays without mentioning Dillon Brooks. Brooks has quite the reputation for being a dirty player, and this time he got into it with Mitchell. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Memphis Grizzlies were in the third quarter of their game when all hell broke loose. Brooks straight up punched Mitchell in the face. Unbelievable, right? But the fight didn't end there. Oh no. Brooks then drove to the basket, and Evan Mobley challenged him. As Mitchell fell to the ground, Brooks rolled over and purposely hit him below the belt. Ouch! Mitchell wasn't going to take it lying down, so he threw the ball at Brooks and wrestled him to the ground. Both of them were shown the door. And guess what? It doesn't stop there. Killian Hayes and Mo Wagner got into a nasty fight in a game between the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. With just 30 seconds left in the game, things got out of hand. Wagner was ahead of Hayes as they both went for a loose ball, but then chaos ensued. He moved aside and Hayes was pushed into the Detroit bench, but that wasn't enough. While Wagner was down, Hayes sneaked in a punch to the back of his head. The fight escalated and it got bloody. 11 players received bans and fines. Sounds horrible, right? But what's worse than an all-out brawl? Getting into one with the legendary Shaquille O'Neal. This epic showdown happened during the 2010 NBA playoffs. Shaquille O'Neal, the big number 18 for the Cleveland Cavaliers, went head-to-head with Brad Miller from the Chicago Bulls. You won't believe it, but Shaq literally knocked the shoes off Miller with a powerful move. He swung a right-handed haymaker at him while trying to get around. Thankfully, Miller managed to escape serious injury and kept on playing. It was a close call. But here's the real kicker. Charles Oakley and Ron Artest were also present during the game. It turns out it wasn't just a coincidence. If you pay close attention to the brawl, you'll see that Oakley actually provoked Shaq by throwing a tempting shot at him, and that unleashed the beast within Shaq, showing the same intimidating side that's terrified NBA players for decades. Oh, but the fighting madness doesn't stop there. Let's talk about Charles Barkley's last season with the Houston Rockets. He wasn't about to let Shaquille O'Neal intimidate him. Barkley tried to block Shaq's shot, and you can imagine how Diesel reacted. Yep, with his fists. They started throwing punches right under the basket. Barkley even smacked Shaq in the head with the ball. It quickly turned into a wrestling match, but fortunately it didn't escalate further. Otherwise, it might have been Barkley's final bout. And there's more. Remember when Rafer Alston slapped Eddie House? This one's a bit funny, I must admit. During a playoff game, Alston gave House a little tap on the back of his head. Why? Well, because House was celebrating after making a three-point shot. Can you believe it? Alston actually hit his opponent for showing some excitement. That slap went viral in a flash, and fans didn't hold back in criticizing Alston for his immature act. But guess what? He had an explanation. Fearing the backlash, he came forward to say that he had a good reason for hitting House and that he didn't mean to hurt him. He swore that he saw a giant insect on his headband, a really nasty, blood-sucking looking thing. I'm not making this up, I swear. He just wanted to make sure his opponent was safe, even though House was making all of them look bad in front of everyone. What a great guy, right? When asked about the slap, House had nothing but praise for Alston. At first, he didn't know why the point guard hit him, but once he understood, he was super thankful to him. He literally went on and on about how great Alston was, and even said that Alston had the softest hands of any man he had ever met. Even though the bug answer might sound crazy, it worked. The two players have had no blood between them. So from a fight that got 11 players fined and suspended, to fighting the legendary Shaquille O'Neal, that's all for the craziest NBA fights of all time.